Hello! Welcome to today's story with myself, Nidrach the Foamasi, as your storyteller for today. A small disclaimer that any of the views shown by the Foamasi in today's tale are not representative of the Foamasi Government's standpoint on Christmas and other seasonal holidays. In our culture, we don't celebrate any holidays, so we value all of your holidays as equally trivial and as unimportant as all the others. Anyway, now that I have this traitor's storybook, and if you are all seated in adequately comfortable positions, then we shall begin. How the Foamasi Stole Christmas. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But the Foamasi, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Foamasi hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now, please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be, perhaps, that his voice synthesizer was too tight. But I think that the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Whos, staring down from his cave with a sour Foamasi frown at the warm-lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now, hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas. It's practically here. Then he growled, with his Foamasi fingers nervously drumming, I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow, he knew. All the Who girls and boys would wake up bright and early, and they'd rush for their toys. And then, oh the noise. Oh, the noise, 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 noise. That's the one thing he hated. The noise, 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 noise. Then the Whos, young and old, would sit down to a feast. And they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, 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 feast. They would feast on Who pudding, and rare Who roast beast, which was something the Foamasi couldn't stand in the least. And then they'd do something he least liked of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together. With Christmas bells ringing, they'd stand hand in hand, and the Whos would start singing. They'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing, 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 sing. And the more the Foamasi thought of this Who Christmas sing, the more the Foamasi thought I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I've put up with it now. I must find a way to stop these traitors from coming. But how? Then he got an idea. An awful idea. The Foamasi got a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what to do. The Foamasi laughed in his throat, and he made a quick Santa Claus hat and coat. And he chuckled and clicked. What a great Foamasi trick! With this coat and this hat, I look just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer. The Foamasi looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there were none to be found. Did that stop the old Foamasi? No, the Foamasi simply said, if I can't find a reindeer, I will make one instead. So he called his dog Max. Then he took some red thread, and he tied a big horn on the top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on a ramshackle sleigh, and he hitched up old Max. Then the Foamasi said, "Giddy up," and the sleigh started down towards the homes where the Whos lay a snooze in their town. All their windows were dark. Quiet snow filled the air. All the Whos were dreaming, sweet dreams without care. When he came to the first little house on the square, "This is stop number 1, the old Foamasi claws hissed. Then he climbed on the roof, empty bags in his fist. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch, but if Santa could do it, then so could the Foamasi. He got stuck only once, for a moment or two. Then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where the little Who stockings all hung in a row. These stockings, he grinned, are the first things to go. Then he slithered and slunk, with a smile most unpleasant, around the whole room, and he took every present, pop guns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn, and plums, and he stuffed them in bags. Then the Foamasi very nimbly stuffed all the bags one by one up the chimbley. Chimbley? That's not an English word. That is not one of your human words. Silliness. Then he slunk to the icebox. He took the Who's feast. He took the Who's pudding. He took the roast beast. He cleaned out that icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Foamasi even took their last can of Who hash. And then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. And now, grinned the Foamasi, I will stuff up the tree. And the Foamasi grabbed the tree, and he started to shove, when he heard a small sound like the coo of a dove. He turned around fast, and he saw a small Who. Little Cindy Ladoon who was no more than 2. The Foamasi had been caught out by this tiny Who daughter, who'd got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Foamasi and said, "Santa Claus, why are you taking our Christmas tree, why?" But you know, that old Foamasi was so smart and so slick, he thought up a lie, and he thought it up quick. "Why, my sweet little tot," the fake Santa Claus lied. "There's a light on this tree that won't light up on one side. So, now that I have this traitor's voice box, my dear, I'm going to take it back there, and then I'll bring it back here." And his fib fooled the child. Then he patted her head, and he got her a drink, and he sent her to bed. And when Cindy Ladoon Who went to bed with her cup, he went to the chimney and stuffed the tree up. Then the last thing he took was a log for their fire. Then he went up the chimney, himself, the old liar. On their walls he left nothing but hooks and some wire. And the one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then he did the same thing to all the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for other Who's mouses. It was 1:15 dawn, all the Who's still abed, all the Who's still a snooze, when he packed up his sled. Packed it up with their presents, the ribbons, the wrappings, the tags, and the tinsel, the trimmings and trappings. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. "Pooh-pooh to the Who's," the Foamasi was humming. "They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open for a minute or two, then all the traitors down in Whoville will cry, 'Boo-hoo!'" "That's a noise," grinned the Foamasi, "that I simply must hear." So he paused, and the Foamasi put his hand to his ear, and he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, then it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, this sounded merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry. Very. He stared down at Whoville. The Foamasi popped his eyes. Then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. Somehow or other, it came just the same. And the Foamasi, with his Foamasi feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. And he puzzled 3 hours, till his puzzler was sore. Then the Foamasi thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville they say that the Foamasi's small heart grew 3 sizes that day, and the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light, and he brought back the toys and the food for the feast, and he himself, the Foamasi, carved the roast beast. And so that brings today's story to a close. Did you all enjoy that? Good. I'm glad. Although I can't actually hear any of you, so we will have to exercise our imaginations on this one. Much like we did today, as no Foamasi has a vendetta against a small settlement that worship a capitalist celebration. We have much bigger issues to worry about. And whilst we are mentioning Foamasi, I must say thank you for joining me. You have been most pleasant company. Goodbye, and merry holidays, humans.
The role of Nidrach the Foamasi was played by James Sutton. How the Foamasi Stole Christmas was adapted from the story How the Grinch Stole Christmas, written by Dr. Seuss.